If the dollar collapsed tomorrow, what would you use to buy food, medicine, or even water? In Germany after World War II, cigarettes replaced cash. In Venezuela, people traded rice and cooking oil instead of bolivars. And if America ever faced the same kind of collapse, what would the survival currency look like? Let's find out. When money collapses, it usually starts with one thing: hyperinflation. That's when governments print so much cash that prices explode overnight. A loaf of bread costs $1 today, $10 tomorrow, and $100 by the weekend. Sound familiar? Pretty soon, cash isn't worth the paper it's printed on. People stop trusting money, and once trust breaks, the entire system collapses. History is full of examples. In Germany after World War II, the economy was so shattered that German marks became useless. People traded cigarettes instead, 5 smokes for an egg, a whole carton for a piano. Cash had no value, but everyone understood the worth of something they could hold, light, and use. The United States saw a softer version during the Great Depression. The dollar didn't disappear, but it became scarce. Families had little cash, so they built their own barter system. Neighbors traded food for services, a mechanic fixing a tractor in exchange for sacks of potatoes, or a doctor accepting a basket of apples for treating a patient. Skills and goods replaced money because they carried survival value. Fast forward to Venezuela in the 2010s. Hyperinflation hit so hard that people hauled wheelbarrows full of bolivars just to buy bread. When your groceries cost a bag of cash, you stop bothering with bills. Venezuelans created barter clubs and swapped rice for oil, meat for flour. In Zimbabwe, the same story played out. Their currency collapsed in 2008, with prices doubling almost daily. People turned to US dollars, South African rand, or even small flecks of gold just to buy food. The lesson is clear. Money only works as long as people believe in it. The second that belief disappears, survival takes over. It's not that they stop trading, they just find something else to take its place. And history shows exactly what that looks like. So what replaces money when it fails? History answers that too. In post-war Europe, it wasn't bills or coins that kept people alive. It was commodities. Cigarettes, food, and fuel became the new currencies. You could buy loyalty, safety, or a hot meal with something tangible. The same pattern showed up in America during the Great Depression. With cash scarce, people turned to barter. A teacher might tutor children in exchange for fresh eggs. A farmer could trade corn for firewood. Services mattered as much as goods because survival depended on cooperation. And in more recent times, the blueprint repeated itself in Venezuela and Zimbabwe. Venezuelans built entire barter networks, trading through social media hashtags like trueque, meaning barter. In Zimbabwe, people carried gold flakes in little bags, weighing them at markets to buy bread. When official money died, trade didn't stop. It just shifted back to things everyone recognized as valuable. The core lesson from all these crises is simple. People will always return to what has intrinsic value. Paper bills have no value on their own, but food fills stomachs, fuel gives warmth, and cigarettes calm nerves. Yeah, cigarettes and fuels are nice, but what's the most trusted fallback of all time? For thousands of years, the answer has been the same: gold and silver. Gold and silver have been money long before paper even existed. From ancient kingdoms to modern economies, when trust in government currencies disappeared, these metals stayed valuable. That's why preppers trust them. They know gold and silver can't be printed, can't be erased by a computer glitch, and can't be made worthless overnight by a politician's bad decision. In a collapse, those simple facts matter more than anything written on a banknote. The biggest reason preppers choose metal is history. When the Roman Empire collapsed, silver coins still held value. When governments fell in medieval Europe, people still traded gold. Even during America's own early history, the promise of silver and gold backed the strength of the US dollar. Time and time again, when paper money has burned out, metals have always survived. That track record makes them the ultimate hedge. But here's the catch. It has to be physical bullion, not paper claims. Preppers warn against trusting digital gold accounts, mining stocks, or exchange-traded funds. Those are still tied to banks and markets, the exact system that might fail in a collapse. What matters is what you can actually hold in your hand. A 1-ounce silver coin in your pocket is yours no matter what happens to Wall Street. A line of numbers in a bank account isn't. Still, not all bullion is equal when it comes to survival. Gold is powerful. but it's often too valuable for small trades. Imagine trying to buy a loaf of bread with a gold coin worth $2,000. It just doesn't work. That's where silver shines. Silver has always been the people's money, small enough in value to make everyday trade possible. Preppers especially value junk silver. That's the nickname for US dimes, quarters, and half dollars minted in 1964 or earlier. They're 90% silver, common, and instantly recognizable. A pre-1964 quarter contains just under a fifth of an ounce of silver, which makes it the perfect size for small barter. You don't need to explain it, you don't need a certificate, and it's an old American coin everybody knows. In a collapse, that familiarity is priceless. Gold still plays an important role though. Think of silver as your everyday spending money, and gold as your long-term savings. Silver can buy you food or fuel in a local barter market. Gold can store your wealth for bigger trades, maybe land, equipment, or safety once the chaos settles down. Preppers often buy fractional gold coins, like 10th-ounce American gold eagles. These smaller coins make it easier to trade without giving up a fortune all at once. A mix of both metals, gold for wealth, silver for survival, creates balance. Recognition is another factor. An unfamiliar foreign coin might raise suspicion, but an American silver eagle or a US quarter doesn't need much of an introduction. Some preppers even buy combo bars, larger bars scored into 1-gram squares that can be broken off like pieces of chocolate. They solve the problem of making change in a barter economy. Being able to hand over just a gram of gold or silver could mean the difference between a fair trade and losing too much value. But you can't eat metals. A bag of rice will keep you alive in a way a gold bar never could. That's why serious preppers insist on priorities. First comes food, water, shelter, and security. Only after those bases are covered do metals make sense. They aren't a substitute for survival, they're insurance. A way to preserve wealth and buy opportunities when the world begins rebuilding. So precious metals aren't magic bullets. They won't cook your meals or patch your wounds, but they're timeless. And when paper money dies, people instinctively reach for gold and silver. That instinct is why preppers still count them as part of their survival plan. Not the first priority, but an unshakable backup. But there is one ground reality you need to understand before you can trade your golds and silvers. If metals are the classic hedge, barter is the reality on the ground. When money fails, people don't stop trading. They just switch to things that matter for survival. Food, water, bullets, medicine. These become the new dollars, the new coin, the new paycheck. In a collapse, your pantry and your supply closet are your real bank account. Let's start with food and water, because nothing tops them. Cans of beans, bags of rice, jars of peanut butter. These are currencies everyone understands. If you have more than you need, you can trade the extra. And if you don't, you'll be the one paying with silver or ammo to get some. Water's even more vital. Once city systems shut down, clean water becomes life or death. That's why preppers stock water filters and purification tablets. In a barter market, a $20 filter could be worth more than gold. You can't live 3 days without water, and everyone knows this. Next is ammunition. In America, firearms are everywhere, but ammo isn't limitless. We've already seen how fast it disappears. 2008, shelves empty. 2020, shelves empty again. During those shortages, prices multiplied. Now imagine that same shortage during a full collapse. A box of 22 long rifle rounds could buy a week's worth of groceries. A handful of 9mm cartridges might get you medicine. That's why ammo is often called ballistic currency. It has dual use. It keeps you safe, and it can be traded. Preppers focus on common calibers: 9mm, 22 long rifle, 223, 556, 45 ACP, 12 gauge, because they're the most widely used and recognized. In a barter economy, universality means liquidity. Then there's medicine. Think about how many people in your neighborhood rely on prescriptions, blood pressure pills, insulin, asthma inhalers. In a collapse, pharmacies will be raided and emptied in days. That makes medicine one of the most powerful currencies in existence. Even basic painkillers like ibuprofen or aspirin could trade for food. Bandages, antiseptics, antibiotics all become priceless. History shows this. In the Great Depression, doctors were sometimes paid with chickens, eggs, or produce. In Venezuela, people traded medicine for meat. The value of health doesn't vanish when money dies. It skyrockets. Fuel and energy comes next. Gasoline, propane, kerosene, even plain old batteries. Without them, modern life grinds to a halt. A few gallons of fuel could mean escape, warmth, or survival. Propane is a favorite among preppers because it stores indefinitely. Small canisters can be traded easily. Batteries are another top item. In a blackout, a pack of AA batteries is worth more than a $20 bill. Solar chargers and crank radios also carry serious trade value. Anything that brings power in the dark becomes a currency of its own. Now, here's something people often overlook: vices. Alcohol and tobacco might not keep you alive, but they can keep you sane, and history proves their value. In post-war Europe, cigarettes were literal money. In Soviet times, a bottle of vodka could open doors faster than cash. In a collapse, people will crave comfort as much as calories. A small bottle of whiskey, a pack of cigarettes, these items might buy loyalty or even protection. Preppers who don't drink or smoke often stock them anyway, purely as trade goods. Because addiction doesn't disappear in hard times, it only gets stronger. Beyond the basics, there are everyday items that suddenly turn into luxuries, matches and lighters for example. Fire means heat, light, cooking, all in one. Soap and toothpaste too. We saw it in 2020, people fighting over toilet paper and hand sanitizer. Multiply that panic by 10 and you'll understand why hygiene products are powerful trade items. Coffee, sugar, chocolate, and spices also climb in value fast. They don't just feed the body, they feed morale. A parent might give up ammo or fuel just to bring their child a piece of candy. That emotional value makes them potent currency. Let's look at recent examples. During the 2008 financial panic, ammo prices shot through the roof. Shelves emptied, and those who had stock could charge 10 or 20 times normal prices. During the pandemic, toilet paper became so scarce, it sparked fights in grocery aisles. Hand sanitizer bottles sold for outrageous prices online. These weren't luxuries, they were survival and comfort rolled into one. Exactly the kind of things that turn into money when official money fails. The barter economy also highlights another truth. Not all trades are equal. Small, divisible items are far more useful than large ones. A gallon of whiskey is harder to trade than a dozen mini bottles. A giant propane tank is valuable, but difficult to portion out, while small canisters are easy currency. That's why preppers think in terms of making change. Just like junk silver quarters, small trade items are the coins of a barter world. Here's one more point. Barter isn't just about goods, it's also about trust. In a collapse, your reputation is as important as your supplies. Cheat someone once, and no one will deal with you ever again. Build a reputation for fairness, and you'll always find fair trade partners. In that sense, community itself becomes a form of currency. So when people ask what replaces money after a collapse, the answer isn't complicated. Food, water, ammo, medicine, fuel, comfort goods. These are the new dollars. They're the things that keep you alive, and they're the things people will always trade for. In the end, a pantry full of beans or a shelf stacked with ammo is more valuable than any pile of cash. Because in a barter economy, survival itself is the price tag. But even the most valuable stockpile runs out. When the cans are gone and the ammo's low, there's one currency that never dries up: the skills you bring to the table. When people talk about survival currency, they usually picture coins, bullets, or canned food. But there's one type of currency that doesn't sit on a shelf. It lives inside you: skills. In a collapse, knowing how to fix, build, heal, or teach can be just as valuable as a sack of silver. Think about it. What good is owning a generator if you can't repair it when it breaks down? What good is stockpiling seeds if you don't know how to grow them into food? History gives us proof. During the Great Depression, many doctors and dentists didn't get paid in cash. Families had no money, so they paid in potatoes, eggs, or home-cooked meals. Sometimes they offered a day of farm labor in exchange for a medical visit. Carpenters and mechanics found themselves in similar positions, fixing equipment not for cash, but for food or firewood. In those years, your trade was your paycheck. Now imagine a collapse today. A skilled mechanic could barter engine repairs for groceries. A carpenter could trade furniture or home repairs for ammunition. A teacher might offer lessons for children in exchange for food. A nurse with medical knowledge could become the most valuable bank account in the community. Suddenly, your value isn't measured by what's in your wallet, it's measured by what you can do. When dollars fail, you'll spend your reputation and your abilities as much as you spend your silver. Still, not every prepper believes survival currency has to be physical. Some argue the future of collapse-proof money might be digital. Gold and silver have history on their side. Food and ammo are obvious survival money. But what about digital money like cryptocurrency? In recent years, more and more preppers have started asking whether Bitcoin could be the new gold in a collapse. It's easy to see the appeal. Bitcoin can't be printed at will by a government. Its supply is capped, making it resistant to inflation. And unlike a heavy bag of coins, it's weightless. You can carry millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin in your memory with nothing more than a password. That portability makes it especially attractive. If you had to flee your home or even your country, you couldn't realistically lug around gold bars or crates of canned goods. But with cryptocurrency, your wealth can move with you across borders. No one can confiscate a passphrase locked in your head. Some preppers love the idea. They see Bitcoin as a way to preserve wealth while staying completely independent of banks or governments. In fact, some had already shifted savings from gold into digital wallets, believing Bitcoin may one day be even more valuable. But here's the problem. Cryptocurrency lives and dies with electricity and the internet. If the grid goes down or if a cyber attack cripples communication networks, your digital money vanishes into thin air, at least until power is restored. That's the biggest fear. There's also the question of adoption. Right now, not everyone understands cryptocurrency, and even fewer accept it directly for goods. In a survival scenario, convincing your neighbor to accept Bitcoin for a bag of rice might be an impossible sell. Most people will want something they can see and hold. That's why many preppers remain skeptical. They see Bitcoin as too abstract, too fragile, and too dependent on a modern system that might not survive a collapse. So where does that leave crypto? Somewhere in the middle. For some, it's a hedge, a backup plan. If the collapse is economic but not infrastructural, Bitcoin could thrive. Imagine a scenario where the dollar crashes, but the internet still works. In that case, Bitcoin could quickly become an alternative to government currency. But if the collapse is total, if the lights go out and stay out, then digital money won't buy you a single meal. At best, cryptocurrency is a gamble worth holding in small amounts, but not something to bet your survival on. In other words, survival currency isn't a digital object you can tuck in your pocket. It's layers of value, your pantry, your ammo box, your medicine chest, your toolbox, and your reputation. Together, they form your real wealth in a world where paper dollars are nothing more but fire kindling. And here's the final truth. Survival currency won't be printed in a mint or mined on a blockchain. It will be stored in your shelves, in your hands, and in the skills you carry with you every day. That's the payoff. Prepare now or pay later.